Okay, we're going to do all that at the end, and Ann's going to say something about the auction. If I forget it, then just speak up and say, Welcome to Westside Unitarian Universalist Church. My name is Ellen Greenwood. For those of you who may not know me, my pronouns are she, her, and hers, and I am the worship associate for today's service. We welcome you here with us in person, and we welcome you if you are joining us virtually via YouTube, either now in real time or perhaps at some time in the future. We are a welcoming congregation that seeks to affirm each person who chooses to worship with us, regardless of who you are and how you identify spiritually or in any other way. I hope that each of you who are here with us in person this morning will stay for coffee after the service, coffee and conversation. And also, if you are visiting, I would encourage you to stop by our visitors' corner over here in the back of the sanctuary. It is very conveniently near the coffee pot. So you will find some information there about Westside and also about Unitarian Universalism in general. I just want to mention a couple of things very briefly in the way of announcements. Last Sunday, we started our spiritual practices service at 9:30, and we will be continuing that, which is a service with a slightly different format, a different feel to it, and if you think that that might be something that appeals to you and would be meaningful to you, be sure and give it a try. And then we'll talk a little bit later in the service about our auction, which is coming up next Sunday. But just make sure you have that on your calendar. I'm especially pleased this morning to introduce our guest speaker, the Reverend Jake Morrill. Some of us have known Jake and heard him speak when he was serving as the lead minister of the Oak Ridge Unitarian Universalist Church. Jake grew up attending TVUUC, Tennessee Valley Unitarian Universalist Church. And in 2022, he stepped down from the Oak Ridge Church after 19 years to become a full-time leadership coach and consultant. And we are very honored to have him here with us this morning, and you will be hearing more from him very soon. We're going to open this morning with a hymn for all of us to sing. It is Gathered Here, number 389. In your hymnal, we are going to sing it as a round. The choir is going to come up and lead us in this. We'll sing it all the way through one time, all together, and then we will split into parts. Those of you over here on my right will be part number one. We'll start out, and then this side will come in at number two, and you will have some choir people leading you. And we'll sing it through 2 times as a round, yes. Please stand as you are willing and able.
Gathered here in one
That was beautiful. Thanks to all of you. That was great. As we settle ourselves into a time of contemplation and kind of letting everything else go that may be pulling on our minds and our nervous systems at this time, and become centered here together as a community, I will invite our Tibetan singing bowl to sing. And Reverend Morrill will light our chalice for us this morning with, as I read these words. I thought it would be appropriate as we are approaching the celebration of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King's birthday to use a quotation from him for our chalice lighting. "Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that." And as is our custom, we will light a couple of more candles, our community candles, to show our connection to the world outside this group. And also today, in honor of Dr. King's birthday, I think it's appropriate that we light a candle of concern for the growing threats that we are seeing in our country, and other countries too, but I'm thinking today especially of our country, to civil liberties, especially to voting rights, serious threats made to the progress made by the civil rights activists of the 1950s and the 1960s. And similarly, we like to look for good news when we can find it too. And similarly, I thought we would light our good news candle today in honor of all those individuals who have worked and continue to work to protect civil rights. And I saw an article recently that singled out some of the unsung heroes of the civil rights movement. And I was particularly impressed by the story of Willie Pearl Mackey, who was a young woman who went to Birmingham. She risked her life to accompany Dr. King to Birmingham in 1962. And while there, she typed the draft of Dr. King's famous letter from the Birmingham jail, piecing it together from scraps of newspaper and sandwich bags and toilet paper that he had to use for writing because he was refused writing paper. We know that there continue to be countless individuals who work for social justice whose names we will probably never hear, and we celebrate all those heroes. And now, Reverend Jake Morrill.
Thank you, Ellen, and thanks to all of you, not only for being here today when the covers and staying snuggled up might have been the warmer option, but also for keeping the flame burning here in Farragut and West Knoxville of Unitarian Universalism. It is important that there is a presence and a beacon of our shared values. Today on MLK Sunday, to remember Dr. King's legacy as merely about the civil rights of Black Americans in the South would be too narrow a topic. To expand the view slightly of his legacy to be about civil rights for all Americans would still be too narrow. To say that beyond civil rights we include economic justice and global peace, these concerns of his later years, in my eyes, would still be too narrow. Dr. King was first and foremost a minister. His agenda was to bring nothing less than the inbreaking power of the divine in this world through the creation of the beloved community among its people. And whatever the context and application, his strategy for bringing forth the divine was that of a world fueled by nonviolence. And so that is the topic I invite you to consider with me today, nonviolence and its legacy and implications for us in our lives. So here's what I want to do. I want to take nonviolence off the shelf. Secondly, I want to hold it up and look at it together and shine a light on it. And thirdly, I want each of us to take it into our hands and our lives as we will. Those three things. So first, let's take nonviolence off that dusty shelf. You know those magazines where things of great value and historical import are covered with dust and resting on shelves in low light behind a pane of glass, an image of frozen perfection and utter irrelevance to us in our lives. That's how it can be with nonviolence. We see these black and white, inspiring photos of John Lewis kneeling there near the Edmund Pettus Bridge in Selma, covered with blood, being beaten by a trooper, and we think something like, well, I'm glad he did that brave thing back then. So the first thing I want to do is to take nonviolence out from behind the glass in that display case. Nonviolence is not the practice of perfection. To be ethical in this world actually is to agree to be imperfect, to be soiled and compromised. I'll give an example. Since I was a 15-year-old member of the youth group at TVUUC, Tennessee Valley UU, 16 miles east of here, I have been a vegetarian. Did I make that decision taking into mind having a crush on a certain girl here at the Westside UU Church youth group? Well, who knows? Starting out, I imagined myself and my choices as a new vegetarian to be pure as the driven snow. But then I began to learn about all of the ethical complications about how food is produced and to see that there was really no honest way to separate myself from suffering, try as I might. And as time went on, I continued to consider and revise and adapt my position on ethical eating. For instance, I developed the principle that hospitality trumps my vegetarian choices. There was a sad afternoon one Monday several years ago where I was welcomed into the home of a weeping widower. He'd lost his wife that morning, his wife of 60 years. And to honor the visiting pastor, he had ordered an enormous, heaping ham sandwich. In that moment, the right thing to do was for me to sit down and break bread with him and to enjoy that sandwich, which at home I never would have made for myself. So as I talk about all of this, I'm not really interested in the questions of ethical eating, where I'm sure there are as many decisions and views as there are people in this room. I'm more interested in pointing to what it means to be an ethical person in this world, forever balancing competing considerations, forever making imperfect judgment calls, forever weighing one's own commitments with what the moment calls for itself. As that is true with whatever one determines to be ethical eating, so too is it true with the practice and application of nonviolence. Nonviolence is not a stance meant to ensure one's own personal piety, to enshrine one's sense of one's goodness. Nonviolence instead is a strategy for producing more safety in this amidst danger, to produce more thriving amidst suffering, to produce more life in this life. And that does mean to take it off the shelf, out from behind the glass, and hold it in our hands as a real-world option for each one of us. It means accepting loss and suffering and complication and contamination of our own ideals as the cost of engagement. So having taken it out from the display case, out from behind the glass, let's shine a light on it. Let's define it. Let's see what this thing is. What are we talking about when we say nonviolence? There's a story that has become famous from right here in Knoxville. In 2007, there was a march of the Ku Klux Klan downtown on Gay Street. What the KKK didn't know was that people had caught wind of this terrible event and had organized to meet them. These people organized to meet them called themselves the Ku Klux Klowns, the CCC. And they dressed with faces painted and with big colored wigs, that kind of thing. So on the day of this racist march down Gay Street, here came the KKK marchers shouting out, "White power." And a conventional response to such odious words might be anger or rebuttal or even to meet that violence with some other form of violence. But instead, the Ku Klux Klowns replied to a call of white power by pretending not to hear. They said, "What are you saying?" And so the racist marchers shouted out even louder, "White power," to which the Ku Klux Klowns replied, "Oh, white flour," and thereupon threw handfuls of self-rising Martha White's best into the air, clouds of white flour. And again the marchers shouted, "White power," and the counter-protesters laughed and said, "Oh, you mean white flowers," and threw out daisies, white flowers. And continued with this kind of mirthful response. They had brought along tight showers, camping showers. Tight showers? Some of them had dressed in wedding dresses. Wife power? And so it continued, making a mockery of this day that these racists had hoped would be remembered as fear, as a demonstration of their strength, born on fear. So that's an image of what a nonviolent response can look like. And maybe some of us remember the movie Rustin from last year that came out about Bayard Rustin, the architect of the nonviolent strategy in the civil rights movement. And Rustin himself had studied Mahatma Gandhi's work in India. Gandhi himself had studied Henry David Thoreau and his writing Civil Disobedience in the Mexican-American War. So Rustin himself understood himself in this lineage of nonviolent resistance. But the theologian Walter Wink would put the roots of nonviolent strategies back even further than that. Walter Wink directs people to reconsider from a new angle the familiar line of turn the other cheek. Turn the other cheek is conventionally understood as an invitation to pacifism, as the stance of the meek in response to harassment. But Walter Wink unpacked it with a sociological view. And so I want to share how he writes about it. So in the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus says, "You have heard it was said, an eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. But I tell you, do not resist an evil person. If anyone slaps you on the right cheek, turn to them the other cheek too." This example is going to require people knowing the difference between right and left. So follow me here. Okay, so show them the left cheek too. In the time of Jesus, raise your left hand. In the time of Jesus, this left hand was not for public use. This was for private and contaminated uses. So you can put that behind your back. This was the hand that you would use out in public for slapping, hitting, and doing all kinds of public things. If I was met by somebody who considered themselves my superior, my social superior, the appropriate way that person could humiliate me was with a backhanded slap. So imagine now that you're giving me, with your right hand, a backhanded slap on my right cheek. Easy to do, and you might even be fantasizing about doing that right now. Jesus says, if somebody slaps you, humiliates you, this is a social superior in the conventional setup, with the right hand, give them your left cheek too. Now, what many of us with modern ears don't know, hearing about turn the other cheek and assuming that it's a recipe for meekness, is that to present the left cheek to somebody who can only use his right hand is to present a crisis and a challenge in social standing. Because now imagine you still can only use your right hand, and now I'm presenting my left cheek. Can you hit me with your backhand anymore? So instead, you would have to either hit me with open hand or with a fist. This kind of fighting was the kind, in the time of Jesus, engaged in by social equals. So when I turn my cheek like this, I present a dilemma to the antagonist. I'm saying, okay, try again. And as you do, you will declare us to be social equals. Far different from how the common understanding of be a doormat, take whatever punishment there is. And even in that earlier line, do not resist an evil person. Resist, if you go back and translate it, it means don't stand against, don't be violent against violence, is a more accurate rendering. And so Jesus is prescribing nonviolence not as the strategy of a doormat, but instead the strategy of one who upends the entire configuration of the social encounter, one who poses a different question than the one that's been put on the table. There's a line that violence depends on me treating others as I have already been treated, an eye for an eye, as Jesus says. If I have been disrespected, then I will disrespect you. If I've been humiliated, I will humiliate you. If I've been hurt, then the only logical thing is for me to hurt you. It's the punchback impulse, as if that was the only way I could keep myself safe. A violent response may seem oppositional to the force it engages. I mean, that's what it looks like from a distance, that it is an opposing force. But in fact, a violent response depends on a deeper agreement that the only possible action in response to violence is one similarly of harm or destruction. People often don't take pride or joy in violent responses, but often justify it in contrast to the doormat approach. Well, you have to show the other person who's boss. You have to stand up to bullies, that sort of thing. But the choice between bulldozer and doormat, those two choices, fight or flight, is a lie of the world, the lie of violence, that there are only two choices. Nonviolence is always a third way, a way to refuse the violence without being violent myself. Nonviolence is an active force that engages the forces of violence and challenges the terms upon which they depend. Nonviolence works by denying the sources, the claims of authority that violent forces depend on. It is to laugh at the KKK. It is to refuse to send my children to school if I know that ISIS has taken over teaching schools. It is to disengage. It is ways that deny the claims of authority upon which the violent actor depends. It works by putting forth and enacting a new vision for the world, a vision in which the assumption is justice, care, and respect. In other words, nonviolence is not merely a way to register dissent, to express difference. Nonviolence is a strategy meant to produce change. Or instead of strategy, you might think about it as an evolving and adaptive technology. In the same way as 150 years ago, the Pony Express or covered wagon was the way to deliver mail, and that has now become that virtual media, texts, etc., are the way to deliver information. So too, if warfare and violent means in years past, centuries past, were the ways to deliver social change, perhaps now, in that light, the technology of nonviolence is what is only now coming to the fore. So, if you're following me, we've taken nonviolence out from behind the glass and seen it as something in this real world, a real world option, not just a nostalgic memory of days gone by. And we've looked at it as shone a light on it and defined it as a strategy, a technology intended to produce change, however imperfectly, however maddeningly slowly. So let's now look to the third piece. What would it look like to take it each into our own lives, to have Dr. King's legacy live not only once a year in songs we shall overcome or in breakfasts and marches, but instead in our own daily lives with our own daily commitments? What would it look like if we received Dr. King's legacy as a mandate, if we adopted, each of us, the ethic of nonviolence? And especially, what would it look like if, say, this morning, we find ourselves not yet harnessed to some larger mass movement? Perhaps some people are, those movements for democracy, those movements for stemming the effects of climate change. But what if you sit here saying, well, I'm just a person. What on earth can I do? And so as I put forth this thought about what nonviolent ethic would look like for each of us in our lives, I begin with the personal and interpersonal, rather than the delusion that we're going to end this service by all going streaming out the door and into the streets. As I see it, to take up the ethic of nonviolence is to take up at least 3 practices: composure, curiosity, and courage. Composure, curiosity, and courage. First of all, composure. Perhaps it was as a parent, perhaps as a minister, or maybe as a therapist, that at some point I stopped believing any sentence that began, "He made me feel," or even, "She made me." Yes, other people make choices that have implications for us. But what happens in the world, what other people do, and how I then respond are 2 different things. When I take responsibility for my feelings, for my interpretation, for my range of options, and then for my actions, I grab hold of a power far beyond that of those who are made to do or to feel this or that in their lives. This self-responsibility, this self-possession, I see as composure. I remember one of my heroes, Nelson Mandela, in the prison on Robben Island outside off the shores of Cape Town, South Africa, for so long, in the vicious system of injustice of South African apartheid. And remember how he befriended and slowly wore away resistance in the hearts of prison guards there, until on the day of his release, he considered them friends. And I'm ashamed to think for a moment that I, with my comfort and privilege, would feel out of control, that I would have fewer choices with how I conduct myself. Nonviolence, first of all, then, requires composure, the stance that says, I am responsible for managing myself. I will consider my options. I'll choose what I will do and what I won't do. Composure, self-responsibility. But after composure, I'd say, nonviolence requires of me curiosity, that second thing. Composure and then curiosity. Curiosity is the antithesis of certainty. Certainty, the fantasy that I move through the world with complete knowledge, with hold of concepts and commitments that are beyond question. Curiosity, on the other hand, is humbler, and I would say much more accurate stance. Curiosity says, I don't know, at least completely. I wonder what will happen. When engaging a violent world, a world in which others behave in ways that seem destructive, a world in which ways that we behave can seem destructive, curiosity says, this doesn't completely make sense. What's going on here? What else is at play? Curiosity always seeks the truth, not convenient fictions. Curiosity is the restless refusal of conventional wisdom and explanations of how things are which uphold injustice. Because curiosity is the relentless refusal of what is unacceptable, curiosity is inextricably linked to hope. Curiosity is an essential ingredient of nonviolence because it forever stays open to the possibility of change and connection in and with the other. It never gives up on the other. It always hopes to understand, to reconcile, and to connect. So when I manage myself with composure, the next question to ask is, how curious am I? How open am I to seeing what's really happening so that my actions can be grounded in discovery of the truth and the union of justice? I was telling Jerry before the service, in 2017, I was fortunate to spend a couple of weeks in Israel and Palestine and got to meet nonviolent activists on both sides of the wall. And it was inspiring to me and also humbling. Inspiring because of the fierce commitment of people mired in this intractable systemic violence, to see this fierce commitment to strategies of nonviolence, and also humbling because I think that I had hoped that they might tell me the way through or the way out, and instead these were people who kept open their hearts, who kept open their minds, and continued fiercely to pursue nonviolent means of resolution of this terrible, complex land. That curiosity is unsatisfying and in the moment set aside certainty, and yet perhaps the only way possible in a world of complication. When I am rooted in composure and open and alert in curiosity, a third consideration I would propose for those who seek to anchor themselves in nonviolence is courage. Courage is not the absence of fear, of course, but the decision that something is worth more than the avoidance of fear. To be nonviolent in a violent world is by necessity to be at odds with comfort, to be at risk. To be nonviolent is to yoke one's life to a hope of the world that will be resisted by those who are perfectly content with the current state of things. To be nonviolent in a violent world means to start with changes in ourselves, to be accountable to whatever values it is we profess. To be nonviolent is to be alive, by which I mean uncomfortable. And to sustain discomfort, to choose it over comfort, is to choose courage again and again. To say the thing or to do the thing which might invite displeasure or even worse. Martin Luther King Jr. didn't let the fear of assassination stop him from pursuing his vision anchored in nonviolence, and we know what happened. Practicing courage doesn't guarantee safe deliverance. In fact, just as the Roman Empire littered the landscape with crosses of their political enemies as a warning to others not to step out of line, we live in a society reminding us daily of the perils of being different or being at odds or being honest, of acting with courage. And I don't know what it is you're up against this morning. In your family or marriage, I don't know what you've been shying away from addressing or holding back from dealing with or from saying. In this congregation, I don't know where politeness or avoidance has taken the place of honesty that would be upheld by courage. In your public lives as citizens and people who are stewards of Unitarian Universalism here in Farragut and West Knoxville, I don't know the areas in which you've shrunk back or avoiding taking your part of responsibility for the world you envision. I don't know where comfort, convenience, and fear are governing your choices in this life. I don't know what threats you're taking into consideration as you fall short, however you might, of that vision of courage. But I do know that what you want most in your life, and your family, and your congregation, and this world, will be attained and realized only through courage. Dr. King is so often depicted in black and white pictures when color film had already been around for years by his time. There's an effort to hold his memory in the amber of nostalgia at a safe distance, as if enshrined behind glass. But in a world of dehumanization, those committed to the project of rehumanization will take his legacy down from the shelf, out from behind the glass, to hold in our hands. Those committed to the project of truth and dignity in a world of lies and debasement will study that legacy of nonviolence and seek to know what it means and what it looks like in the face of our present challenges. And those, like us all, who will die one day ourselves, but are nonetheless committed to be fully alive while we live, will implement and integrate those practices of nonviolence, composure, curiosity, and courage that when the day comes that we have died, those who remember us will look back with gratitude, understanding that they now take up the work of justice making and of peace building that was, in the end, the lasting gift of our lives.
Well, thank you so much for those very thought-provoking words, and I hope you'll have time to stay during coffee time and conversation. I'm sure folks will have some comments they would like to make and to talk about. At this time in our service, we customarily look for opportunities for justice and generosity. In part, this is the part of our service that has taken the place, the passing of a plate, because as those of you who've been with us for a while now are aware, we have quit passing a plate to collect an offering each Sunday. It does not mean that there is no way for you to contribute to the work of this congregation, and both here and in the wider community, but we just do it a little differently. So if you would like to make a cash contribution, there is a box right there. Jerry, sometimes called Vanna, is back there with the box. And you may put cash into that box. There is a QR code on the front of that box if you would like to use that to make your contribution. That QR code is also in your order of service, and it is available on the screen during our YouTube broadcast, and it's on our website. It's just all kinds of places. And so please use that as a way to contribute to Westside. Our Share the Plate partner right now is, I wrote it down here, Inspiring Connections Outdoors. This is the group that encourages and provides opportunities for young people and children who aren't necessarily able to experience nature and the great outdoors to do this with some adult supervision. Also, there are a couple of other things I should mention. In particular, our Green Sanctuary Committee, as you have heard, is planning a tree distribution in a couple of months, and we will definitely need help with that. There is more information about that in your order of service as well, and if you have questions, you could see Jerry Thornton for information there. One of the main ways that we have coming up to contribute to Westside and also have some fun is our auction, which will be taking place next Sunday. So time is drawing near, and Ann Harvey is going to have a few things to say about that. Always.
So we've been telling you, come for the service, stay for the party, and the party is next week. It's here. So a few things to talk about, and first is the auction part of the party. So we're still accepting items. Thanks to everybody. We've got it. It's looking good. And it's a variety of a lot of different events and items. So we're asking you to get your commitment in by this, I guess, the 18th. Is that Thursday? It's the 18th. In your order of service or in the newsletter, or you can go to the website, and it's auction at westsideuuc.org. Let us know what you are planning to donate. We need a description of it. If you'd like to put a minimum starting donation on it, that's fine too. As far as getting it here, there's really nobody here during the week right now. Suzanne and I, and anybody that wants to help set up tables, we're planning to get here about 1 p.m. on Saturday, so you could bring your item then if you haven't brought it in already. Lastly, on Sunday morning, when you come in, if you haven't brought it in yet, there'll be a place for you if you gave us notice that you're bringing something, there'll be a form filled out and you can bring it in at the last minute Sunday morning. I know, but Suzanne, nobody's here for the next few days. But we'll try to be here at 1 o'clock on Saturday for a few hours, and then we'll leave a place for you. If we know you have already given us that information, we'll have a form ready for you, and you can just plop it down very quickly. All right, that's the auction. Let me move a little bit faster. This is about connections. That's our theme, and so we're doing a little match game, and we've got about 15 or 16 people that have stepped forward. Be glad to get a few more. The form is back there on the table, or you can also provide me with something interesting about you at that same site, auction at westsideuuc.org, and share a little something about you that would be fun to have another connection with us on during that party. And the entertainment looks like it's lining up well. We've got a few more minutes, and there's a form back there that if you'd like to help with entertainment for about 30 minutes, 4 minutes each, is that right? Something like that. There's still room for a few more. And lastly, it wouldn't be a party without food. So I have a sign up back there just to give us an idea if we got enough entrees and a little bit of that. But if you've got something favorite, especially if it's something from maybe a family traditional thing that you might like to share with us, tell us about it. That would be fun too, part of that connection to the past with us right now. If you come up with another idea, it's not have to be set in stone as far as what you write down on that form. But that's just to give us an idea to make sure we've got enough of everything. And Joey? Who's here on Wednesday afternoon? Oh. That's a big commitment. What time would that be? I don't know if you can hear it.
Doing it before the service is going to be.
I know it will be hard, but I'll take it.
I'm the one setting it up.
Well,
Don't do it. Bring it ahead of time.
great announcement there. Joey's volunteering to be here from 1 to 4. We've had them come in last minute, and I know it's there.
Please don't tell people that.
We might not get it. 1 to 4 on Thursday. Alice, get me out of this. Change the subject.
That you write a list of what's in the thing and suggest the minimum price or what
Oh.
you write.
A list of,
What's in the basket or the item, that item.
okay, yeah, so if you're doing a collection of things in a basket, for instance, it'd be nice for the description to have what's in it and a value of it and a minimum donation.
Minimum, yeah.
Okay, starting price. Okay. I think that's it. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you, Ann. We always have a lot of fun at the auction, too, and we've never done it quite this way. This is, our time in the history of West Side for kind of trying different things and seeing what works, but I think having the auction directly following the service may be a lot of fun, and we won't have to get out at night. So, sounds good. For our closing hymn this morning, we're going to sing Peace Like a River, number 100 in your gray hymnal. And
What verses?
what verses? Oh my goodness. Let's do all 6 of them, but I won't make you stand up. How about that? All right, all 6. We'll just have all the peace we can stand or sit. Okay. I don't think, we know this one, yeah. I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river in my soul. I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river in my soul. I've got joy like a fountain. I've got joy like a fountain. I've got peace like a river in my soul. I've got joy like a fountain. I've got joy like a fountain in my soul. I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river. I've got joy like a fountain. I've got joy like a fountain in my soul. I've got peace like a river in my soul. I've got joy like a fountain. I've got joy like a fountain in my soul. I've got peace like a river in my soul. I've got joy like a fountain. I've got joy like a fountain in my soul. I've got peace like a river in my soul. I've got joy like a fountain. I've got joy like a fountain in my soul. I've got peace like a river in my soul. I've got joy like a fountain. I've got joy like a fountain in my soul. I've got peace like a river in my soul. I've got joy like a fountain. I've got joy like a fountain in my soul. I've got peace like a ri
As we go from this hour, may we be fools for love and pilgrims for justice, and until we meet again, may we walk in beloved community. Go in peace.